Okay, so here we are. This is the real beginning of this workshop and course in designing information for impact. After the introduction, we will now focus on several things. So we will talk about the program, we will talk about the resources, which is a PDF that we will share with you, the co-design process, the user adoption, organizing information, and then at the end, we will talk about the assignment. So regarding the program, before just like diving into the program, I would like to tell you that on Teams, you might have noticed that there are several folders, and each folder basically contains the name of one of you. But on top, you have 3 folders: the lectures, the assignments, and the forms. In the lectures, you will find the recordings of the introductions and this longer recording that contains different lectures. Then there will be a folder with the PDF for the assignment. And then there is a third folder that is called Forms Assignment, where you actually will find the forms connected with the assignment. So things that you actually fill in, and then you have to upload in your own folder. So we can track and we can keep track of the progress that you are making. So that's it regarding Teams. So it's a very important space that we should monitor. And then regarding the program is actually organized in 3 stages. So there is a stage that is the research stage, which is this current week between the 12th and the 15th of April. And then there is a stage that is called Design Work Part 1. It's 3 weeks, 19th of April, 7th of May. And then you have Design Work Part 2 between the 10th and the 14th of May. Regarding the research stage, so it's lasting a week. It's actually officially starting Monday, 12th of April. I'm recording this on the Monday. So you will basically get the recordings, and hopefully you should be able to look at the recordings before the session tomorrow, Tuesday, 13th of April, that we will have at 10:30 Central European Time. It's going to be a live session where you will have a chance to ask questions or any type of clarification regarding the things that I'm going to talk about during this lecture. On Thursday, 15th of April, you will have to upload the first 2 forms in Teams. Each of you will upload them in one folder, the user adoption, the data collection form. Things will be, of course, very clear once we get at the very end of the lecture with the assignment. And then on Friday, 16th of April, I will use what you have uploaded to just give a very brief introduction, 10 minutes, to all the other people involved in the different courses. Though they will actually present the final result for their own workshop, but we will keep working on it until mid-May. So for us, it's more like a touchdown to share what we have been doing this week and the brief and the context, etc. So, and then we have the design work part 1. It's going to be between the 19th of April and the 7th of May. And here you can see that we will have like a long period of time. It's going to start on the 19th of April, and you will actually start the design work. The only thing that I would like to flag in this longer period of time is that on the Wednesday, 28th of April, there is something that is called the peer-to-peer. It's basically a video call that you will set with one person. You will be assigned to another student in this group, and you will exchange, by filling up a form, you will exchange notes and thoughts and feedback on the progress so far. And then on the Friday, 7th of May, you have to upload all your sketches and the work you have done by 12 o'clock, 7th of May. My suggestion is that you don't have to upload everything on the Friday, 7th of May. You can upload things in your own folder as you go along with the development and progress of the project. And then you have the design work part 2 between the 10th and the 14th of May. On the Monday, 10th of May, we will have a live session with me, so we can just like have a touchdown to make sure that everybody is on track and ready to finalize the project that is going to be uploaded as a final in your folder in Teams on the 13th of May at 1 o'clock Central European Time. So the thing is that on the following Friday, I'm going to give a very short presentation on your behalf that lasts only 10 minutes. So I'm going to ask you, and this is going to be clearer afterwards, I'm going to ask you to produce one slide where you collect a combination of images, both that include the final project, but also that includes some sketchbooks and thoughts and prototypes. So this is going to be the 3 weeks. So we will be together between the 12th of April and the 14th of May. And this is just the skeleton and starting point of the program. We will be in touch during this time. So this is the brief. I'm not going to go into the assignment now. I just want to show that the brief is tailored to the program. So you can see that the brief contains 4 columns. There are the 2 first columns on the left-hand side, the 2 first stages that we will be done by this week, which is the research stage. And then there is the middle column, design work part 1. And then there is the design work part 2, which is the 4th column on the right-hand side. But we will explain the assignment afterwards. Let's talk about the resources. This consists of one PDF that we will include in the Teams folder for this course. And here you can find all sorts of links, interesting links on books and blogs and applications for visualizing information on conferences. So you will find things like platform where you have all the books collected in data visualizations curated by Information is Beautiful. You have platforms like visualizingdata.com where you can find blogs, very interesting blogs and resources. You have Data Stories, a podcast where also Tom and me are featured with an episode that is very fun if you're interested. And then you have the Information is Beautiful award where you can really get a lot of inspiration, and then visualization, for example, in visual communication, which is curated by Kosara, that is very much about the research in data visualization. But now we start our series of lectures, and the first one is the co-design process. So before diving in the co-design process, I just want to say that during the lectures, I will share with you some of the tools that we use to tackle our challenges in information visualization and information design. So the importance of the data, the co-design process, user adoption, the process of smelling the data, latch, organizing information, cognitive principles, visual encoding, tools and techniques, storytelling and story listening. So these are almost like the building blocks of these are like the toolkit that we use. So they form a toolkit actually that keeps expanding every year in line with our experience and our new projects. And they are the pillars of our practice, but also the pillars of the teaching and training that we do. In this specific workshop, we will cover some of these building blocks, the co-design process, user adoption, smelling the data and organizing information. So a special mention to the elephant in the room, the data, even if we will not focus on that specifically in this project. It is very easy to get caught into wanting to make fancy visualizations and infographics. But as information designers, as journalists, and as communicators, our goal should be to provide useful and meaningful information to our readers, which means that just because we have data, it does not mean that we always have to visualize it. But in the assignment, you will create your own data set, and I'm sure it's going to be an excellent starting point. So in order to talk about designing information, we have to take a step back and look at the co-design process. So the way we work as information designers has changed dramatically in the past couple of years. It went from order and delivery to a process where we mostly co-design with our audience, and most importantly, we co-design with the scientists, with the content experts. So we borrow tools for systemic design, service design, cognitive science, and we bring them into the information design and data visualization space. So the goal is to empower audiences to see patterns and to move from data to knowledge and action. If we had to use a diagram to visualize or unpack the journey from data to action, we could say that on one side, we have the audience, learning how the audience will use and receive the information, and understanding the context in which the information will be processed is key for the design process. On the other side, we have the authors of the data, the scientists, Listening to their needs and ideas is equally important. So as designers, we need to dive into the content with the guidance of the content experts, and we need to build a deep shared understanding of the nature of the data and the science that underpins it. So these two actors are the most important players if our goal is to turn data into information, presenting it in a way that becomes knowledge in the mind of the users and hopefully help make important decisions and ultimately inspire change. Now, the process from data to change that on the diagram looks so neat, in reality it looks more like this. It is not linear, tidy and neat at all, for different reasons. First, because of the collaborative and iterative nature of the process that involves different users, scientists, designers, stakeholders, and because it is not a plug and play process. We have to adapt to the challenges that we deal with. Second, because cognition is complex. So information is mediated by the human brain. It's not the message that goes into the brain, but the interpretation of that message and how it is encoded. Third, because science tells us that as human beings, we assess how the information we receive is going to affect our lives, our contexts, our values, and the links to the social groups we belong to. When information threatens those values, we struggle accepting information, even if there is scientific evidence behind it. And fourth, because even if the information is communicated properly, even if we understand it, even if we make the right decisions, we might not be able to act because there are barriers out there that prevent us from doing so. So takeaways. The co-design process is very important because the process is not just an abstract diagram, it is a tool that we use for reality checks and for monitoring the progress. It is a tool that helps our clients become familiar with the process and all the stages, developing a common language, a common understanding of what we are doing. And also it can be used as a blueprint to develop detailed project timelines to map tasks that involve different stakeholders at different stages. Now we talk about the user adoption. So the user involvement along the design process happens in different ways. In later stages, we perform sessions of user testing to validate the directions or to test solutions that are already well developed. But we usually try to involve users or various stakeholders in very early stages too. So in early stages, we know the challenge and little or nothing about the solution, but we need to gain a clear understanding of the needs and motivations of our target audience and other stakeholders in order to gain a more systemic view of the context. And that is where the user adoption plays a key role. It's a fundamental element in the co-design process. So the first experience with the user adoption dates back to when Tom was working at the Norwegian Broadcasting Corporation, beginning of 2000. And his first task was basically to lead the design of the new net TV. And back then, the net TV at the Norwegian Broadcasting Corporation looked like this, basically harder to believe. And today it's a tool that is built on making information easily displayed and in a very evocative way. So during the redesign, the Norwegian Broadcasting company hired a service design company, Doberman, that was in charge of facilitating some initial sessions. So they asked the internal team to adopt a user, meaning to adopt a real person that could be a potential target user and to defend that person and her needs during the process. Tom adopted a little girl. So everything had suddenly a very special angle for Tom, who realized that for kids, organizing things alphabetically might not make sense, because when you ask them to organize content, they go by what is scary, what is funny, what is yucky. So he also realized that in general, searches for kids should not give back programs that were for adults. So the user adoption has become a very crucial tool in our projects and in our teaching. So we have been teaching information visualization for many years to several hundred students, both design and non-design students, and students work on a small or major assignment, and everything starts with user adoption. There is a very loud beeping outside. I'm really sorry about that. So everything starts always with the user adoption. And this is how we look at the end of the courses, not the first day, especially when we tell the students that they will have to work on a specific target audience with kids. So many look a little bit unsure, some even offended. Why should I care about kids? I'm here to learn information design, they say. But things get worse when we tell them that the target audience is not actually kids, but one kid. It always gets very, very silent in the room. At this stage, it is very common that some will try to negotiate. Can I invent a person, right? No, you cannot. But I don't know any child. And we say, we don't care. Look around. You are in London. There are thousands of kids around. Pick one. But seriously, they say, do I really have to talk to a real kid, to a real person? Yes, we say, you have to do that. So since these students are from all over the world, they have to figure out when they will be able to interview their adopted user. But on the following morning, they all come back with their user adoption forms filled up. And this is how the forms look like. It's very simple. We have done it hundreds of times. You will do that too. Things will be very clear later. So adopting a user is a very effective tool to get going without getting lost in the idea of an abstract audience. And when your adopted user belongs to the extremes of a group, things can get even more effective, because those people at the extremes are really good at giving a voice to problems that those in the middle might feel but have a harder time putting their finger on. So one of the projects that we used to assign in our week courses was the visualization of the well-being index. So students had to compare countries on two different indicators, GDP and well-being index. So one student, Thomas, decided to go to a school for kids with learning disabilities and made a piece specifically for a kid with autism. As he was talking to his adopted user, Thomas soon discovered that the adopted user was so passionate about comics, and his favorite comic hero was basically central in his life. So when Thomas was interviewing the adopted user, everything would land on the comic, from the love for Red to having superpowers. So how do you think the visualization of his data looked like in the end? Like a beautiful comic. So this choice was incredibly powerful, because by interacting with this adopted user, he understood how important it is to communicate by generating an emotional connection with the presentation. And this is true for every presentation and communication and visualization. So welcome to the well-being index on the left-hand side in red, and the GDP on the right-hand side. But the most powerful thing is that this visualization works like a charm also for every type of audience. So adopting a user allows us to ask right questions in very early stages and to think who we are communicating to. So you will adopt a user for your assignment, and you will have a chance to familiarize with this tool. So the takeaways when we use, and the reason behind the importance of the user adoption is because it reminds us that data becomes poetry in the end of the users, no outside. So we have to get close to the users if we really want to turn data into knowledge, into wisdom, into action. It is very effective as a tool because we avoid getting lost in the idea of personas that do not exist, because there is no such a thing as an average audience. And also we use it to gain a clear understanding of needs and motivations of our target audience and other stakeholders in order to gain a more systemic view of the context. Now, so the co-design process is our foundation. The user adoption is a very powerful way to begin and to start building the projects. And then we have organizing information, which is an extremely important building block, because it's where, if we look at the diagram, we see that the first step in basically transforming data into information is actually to explore its organization. So this exploration can sound easy or obvious, and we could underestimate it. But we should remember that this step is often what helps us find what we are looking for, or find the things that we would have never noticed otherwise. And that's why Latch at one point enters the picture. So I want to start though with a photograph. So I don't know if you recognize this monument or if you've ever seen it. This is the Vietnam War Memorial in Washington, D.C. Now, if you are familiar with this monument, you may already know how quiet yet moving this monument is. What you may not realize is the importance of the organization of the information that it displays. Because the wall contains the names of 58,000 American servicemen and women who died or went missing during the Vietnam conflict. So how can you organize 58,000 names? If you think about it, maybe the first immediate answer could be alphabetical order. So suppose the names were organized by alphabet, which was actually proposed initially. But if you have 50 John Smith and you choose to organize the names in alphabetical order, you would have probably ended up with something that looked like a telephone book engraved in stone. So, but designer Maya Inling chose a different alternative. The names appears chronologically by time of death or disappearance. And this has two major consequences on the way the monument looks. The first one is a visual consequence. So there are basically two walls. The names are arranged by time of death or disappearance. So we have that the first wall starts short with the initial number of deaths, and then it grows more and more, reaching the peak of the US involvement in the conflict. And as soon as the US pulled out of the area, the number of names decreases again, and the second wall from tall becomes short again. So the walls start out short around 30 centimeters, they grow around 3 meters in the center, and then it ends short again. So the names chart the pattern of the US involvement in the Vietnam conflict. But the second consequence is an emotional consequence, because each individual is in effect surrounded by those who died with them. And this has a profound impact on those who visit the memorial. Any other organization would have created a different memorial entirely, and most likely a memorial without the power and emotion created in the existing one. So an alphabetical organization would have completely depersonalized the experience, depersonalized the monument. So, and all of this is somewhat subliminal, says Nathan Shadroff. When you visit the monument, its information structure isn't the first thing you perceive, but it works nonetheless. This is true of any project where it is a sensitive and emotional monument, a powerful and inspiring museum, a useful and concise catalog, or a thrilling and interesting performance. So from the designer's perspective, we can say that the way we organize our data affects profoundly the story we tell and the message we communicate. But from a user's perspective, we can say that the organization of things affects the way users interpret and understand any story. So the question is, how can I find the right organizations to tell the story I need to tell, or to discover the story I want to tell? Well, this is something we spend a lot of time doing when we work on projects, and it is something we spend a lot of time doing when we teach. Generally speaking, when we teach data visualization, it might be hard to dive into the challenge of organizing information if we put a group of students in front of a table with GDP, CO2 emissions, or crime rate. So in some cases, data can be so complex that the content becomes a barrier that prevents students from diving into the data, playing with the data and smelling the data. But if you use data that people know or can relate to, if you use data that tells something about who we are, where we come from, things are very different. So in the past 10 years, during our workshops, students from all over the world have worked on a brief that is about organizing information, and the data is us, the people, the participants. So the goal is to explore the organization of the information and see how that can affect the stories we tell. So we used to collect data through a survey, things about age, country of origin, but also dreams, favorite colors, mood, favorite dishes. There was so much diversity in the handwriting and in the answers. And one part of the handouts to each student was the collection of answers from all the other students as a Word document. So in some cases, this was pushing some people to go around and actually meet all the other people in the group and ask new questions for the task. We also used to collect pictures from the students beforehand and turn them into drawings. And the drawings of the group would be the visual part of the data set. And we would give students handouts with the drawing, allowing them to play with the visual element if they wanted. So having done this exercise for 10 years with about 300 students, we have seen such a big variety of responses to the brief. But there is a pattern in those responses. There is a really common pattern. The thing is that as human beings, we organize things all the time. And when we are asked to organize a data set, we tend to jump on the task and start organizing them almost unconsciously. And that is tricky because when we design, we can easily end up choosing the traditional ways that first occur to us, rather than stopping and exploring new stories or searching for the best organization that proves the point we want to make. So how would you organize a group of people in first place, or any data set? Designer and thinker Richard Saul-Wurman presents a technique that is called the latch, which shows us that the number of ways in which we can organize information is not infinite. We can explore the data systematically, we can smell the data, have fun, and get lost if necessary before jumping on final solutions too fast. So Richard Saul-Wurman suggests 5 ways to organize everything: location, alphabet, time, category, and hierarchy. So you can choose to organize information according to different variables. Each way will permit a different understanding of the information. So the choice will be determined by the story you want to tell, Richard Saul-Wurman says. So given a group of students, in this case 14 students that we had in a course at the London College of Communication in London, you could organize them by location. So students can be arranged by country of origin, and you will notice that most of them arrive from United Kingdom. Locations are natural ways of organizing data with important connections to geographical position. In some cases, maps are so important. Think how easy would it be to find the exit to an airplane if they were listed in alphabetical order with no diagram? It would be completely useless. Alphabet. So you can arrange the students by alphabetical order. Now, alphabetical order is a powerful one when we know exactly what we are looking for, but we do not know where to find it, right? So the alphabet is an arbitrary sequence of symbols that we learn from very early age. So therefore it can be very effective, but we have to remember that we have different alphabets in different areas of the world. Time, we can arrange students by age, for example, date of birth. And organizing things by time or sequence is very common for train schedules or historic timelines, but it can be very effective for instructions such as cooking or driving or building. Then we have categories. So categories is actually very important. Here, the groups of students, the students are arranged in 2 categories: the ones that hold the paper with 2 ends, and the ones that hold the paper with 1 end. And you discover there is only one person that is holding the paper with 1 hand. And you could maybe discover that that person that holds the paper with 1 end is also the oldest. So you can start making some funny correlations. But categories are a very common way of organizing things and data, since they allow similar things to be grouped together by attributes that are considered important in some way. So defining the specific categories is very crucial because they will communicate the designer's prejudice. They will communicate your prejudice. So the way you choose the categories affects enormously the perception of the information. And that's why the user adoption is very important, because by interviewing your user, you can really try to understand what type of categories could best resonate with that user. And then we have a hierarchy. So students in this case are arranged by the height of the paper with the eyes as a reference point. You can see that there are some students that have the paper just like down here, and there are people that are just covering their face. So any qualitative comparison can be described as a continuum, from the smallest to the tallest, from the lightest to the heaviest. So arranging items in a continuum indicates that this visual scale is the most important aspect of the data. Now, what I would like to do, I would like to show you a video that is basically a few minutes video where you will be able to kind of like see almost like a summary for Latch. There is also the link if you want to rewatch it again.
Throughout time, designers have found different ways to represent information to influence the ways in which viewers interact, think, and understand data. There are many different ways of projecting data, however, none have been more effective than the principle of the 5-hat rack. This design principle asserts that there are a limited number of organizational strategies regardless of specific applications, which means that the data is arranged by 5 main factors, also known as latch. Latch is location, alphabetical, time, category, and hierarchy, also known as continuum. Let's start with alphabetical. Alphabetical refers to arrangement by sequence, like A to Z. Examples include dictionaries, thesauruses, and encyclopedias. This method of organization is most effective when information is either non-linear, specific, or when there are no other strategies appropriate. Time, being our second factor, gathers information by chronological sequence. Time is most appropriate when data is displayed and compared over fixed intervals or durations based on time. Examples are historical time maps, calendars, and timetables. They can also include step-by-step processes such as recipes and IKEA product instructions. Location refers to the organization by geographical or spatial references, and is best used when information is influenced by orientation or wayfinding. Historical sites, maps, trains are the best examples, as they show the flow of data fully related to geography of places. Category is found when information is arranged by similarities or relatedness. Museum archives, library catalogs, and Mondelez's periodic table are examples that data can be clustered by similarities that exist within the information. This design is most effective when viewers naturally seek information by category. Finally, hierarchy is defined by magnitude such as highest to lowest and best to worst. Examples include subject types like trees and animal taxonomy charts, where information can be compared by common measures. These are the factors for the 5 hat racks. But how can it be converged together to organize information? This is easier than you think. For example, one day you decide to go to the supermarket. Hierarchy and product list allows you to track down the products, which are usually arranged by alphabetical order. This would help you to pinpoint its location within the store. When you get to the store's category, determines varieties, flavors, and brands, which can influence you to purchase certain products, and time is shown through the use-by dates. But it doesn't stop here, as if you take any random product from the shelf, the principles similarly apply. If life gave you a box of chocolates, you'll never know what you're going to get, but the contents can be categorized by placement within the box, name of the chocolate, manufacturing date, similarity in colors, and by popularity such as flavors and brands. This principle of design may seem minor, but it plays a vital role. In this example, the 5 hat racks affects the placement of products within the store, which then influences the products that the consumer purchases, in turn affecting market and economy. But this principle does not lie in supermarkets, and you don't need to look far and wide for the magical rule. It can always be found in places like your wardrobe, to your pantry, even your daily exercises like getting from point A to B. The 5 hat racks are a powerful and fundamental design principle which affects the organization of information, which in turn influences the viewer and the way in which they understand and interact with information.
Okay. So the video is very interesting. So, and it is something that you might want to consider also when you will be working on your assignment. The interesting thing is that, and this is also well connected afterwards with the assignment, is that basically data are all around us. So everyday data can be related to our life and can be powerful tools to tell a story when we play with their organization. Especially this book, The Art of Cleanup, maybe you have seen it, is very useful and based exactly on this concept. It's extremely interesting. So you can see that the artist has taken everyday objects and arranged them in different ways. So you can see different stories based on different organizations. The stars, a little branch of a tree, flowers, and people in front of a swimming pool. So it's extremely interesting. And there are also many other projects in relation to this concept of organizing things and organizing or reorganizing data in unusual, unexpected ways. Like, for example, these maps are deconstructed and rearranged by block. There is also this project that is by Boris Müller. It's a fantastic, entertaining way of looking at coins. So you can organize them by region, by material, by date, etc., etc. So you can actually explore their organization, and you can see how by organizing them in different ways, you can actually identify really different stories. Okay, so now we are at the end of the series of lectures, and it's time to talk about the assignment. And let me tell you a data story. So the brief tries to bring together three things that we have seen in the lectures. Adopting a user to involve the users in your design process from very early stages. The joy of working with data that are around us to play with its organization, and the ability to choose a story that communicate a clear message to your adopted user in a format that you should choose in line with the preferences of your adopted user. So this is the brief. The brief is organized in steps. The steps are in line with your program. So you will work on the first two columns in the research stage this coming week. You will work on the third column, the design work part 1, for about 2-3 weeks. And then you will work, that's the third column, and then you will work on the fourth column, design work part 2, in May. So let's also look at the forms that we have already mentioned when I presented the program. These are the user adoption form, the data collection form, and the peer-to-peer form. So both the user adoption form and the data collection form will be uploaded in your own folder in Teams by the 15th of April. And the peer-to-peer form is something that you can use on Wednesday, 28th of April, or a little bit before or after that, as soon as you manage to set a video call with your peer to exchange notes and feedbacks on the progress of the project. So I'm going to read the brief now, because by reading the brief, everything is going to kind of like come together and hopefully things will be clear. So by the 15th of April, so you have to adopt a user. The first step of this brief consists in the user adoption. You will choose a real person that will be the audience of your data story. Your user can be a person close to you, as well as someone that you have not been able to interact with over the past months or years. You have to choose your adopted user, you have to conduct the interview, you have to fill in the user adoption form, and you have to upload it on Teams in your folder by Thursday, 15th of April. So this is the form that is related to this part of the brief. Here, as we have seen earlier, you will have a drawing of a picture of the person. And these are the things that you could talk about during the conversation: age, country of origin, passions, hobbies, work, personal life, film, books, how happy this person was during the day, how happy was the day earlier, where she consumes information, social media, sports, languages, color preferences. One of the craziest things that this person has done. So you should ask as much as possible and ask many whys. So the second step is choose a space. So we are surrounded by spaces where objects are grouped or collected by chance or choice. You should select a group of objects, your data set, stored in one of the following spaces: a closet or a drawer, a desk, a cupboard, a suitcase, a box, or any space you prefer. Your life should be somehow linked to these objects, either because you use them or because you do not use them anymore, because you love them or hate them, because they remind you of something specific, or because you want to forget what they represent, and so on. So please use the form that is called the data collection. You have to fill it in and upload it on Teams in your folder by Thursday, 15th of April. So in this form, what we want to see is just a description or a drawing or a paste of this collection of objects. So we want to see your objects, not in a specific organization. We just want to see and want to hear from you, what is this collection about? So the idea is that at one point, the user adoption and the data collection will meet some point. And we will see how here. So upload the data collection by the 15th of April together with user adoption and describe the objects. So, and now we get to the core and the design part 1. So here you will have 2 deadlines. One, the 28th of April, when you have to perform a peer-to-peer and discussion with your peers, and one on the Friday, 7th of May. So once you have selected the objects, your data set, your task is to observe and study the objects collected in that space, one by one or as a group. B, to discover the relationship between the objects. C, to explore different ways of arranging them according to different variables, and take a photo of each arrangement as a research process. You could, for instance, arrange them by size, by color, functionality, origin, name. You can come up with as many ideas as you like, and you can use Latch, of course. And D, to select one arrangement that would allow you to communicate a specific message, a specific story to your adopted user, something that you think could interest your adopted user, something that you are keen on sharing with this person. Now, you should document this process by taking photos, by drawing, and by noting down your thoughts and decisions on your sketchbook. Upload photos, sketches, notes on Teams in your own folder by Friday, 7th of May. Now, before Friday, 7th of May, on the 28th of April, you will set a call with one of your peers. You will be matched with one person, and you will have a very short conversation. Try to give each other feedback on the progress so far. So this design work part 1 is really a time for smelling the data, as we say, for organizing data, for exploring different organizations, and also for starting bringing in 2 things: the needs of the adopted user that you want to reach, that you want to communicate something to, and your own data. That you probably want to, about the data, you want to be able to extract a message or a story that you want to communicate to your adopted user. Regarding the peer-to-peer that is going to be done on the 28th of April, this is the 3rd form in Teams. So what happens here is that you will be matched with another person. You will see who in a second. So the conversation is going to be organized in this way. So you will, your peer is going to present the objects and what has been done so far. You will take a few minutes to note down some questions to your peer based on what he has or she has described. So you will ask those questions. And while the peer is actually answering these questions, you will make further notes. So the idea is that at the end of the conversation, you should be able to give to the person that you have interviewed a series of notes or feedbacks. So this could be food for thoughts. So each one should be interviewing the other for 15 minutes. So as you say, so by the 28th of April, set a video call with one of your peer, and by filling in the peer-to-peer form, give each other feedback, exchange the final notes so you can leave the conversation with feedback and advice. And you can hold as many conversations with as many classes as you like. So you should start with this. So Jake and Maddalena, and Gok and Luna, Veronica and Carolina, Steven and Melody, Sally and Lisa. So you will be matched this way, but feel free to do as many as you want. During our teaching, we ask students to interview and to have to be paired up with all the other students. So you can have at least 2-3 interviews. And this is extremely useful. It's just a way of self-managing the project, making sure that you are on track, making sure that you receive feedback. So once you have done this preliminary design work, there will be a very final stage, which is design a data story, a design work part 2. The deadline is going to be Thursday, 13th of May. So now you have to focus on your selected arrangement. It is time to work hands-on and create a visualization that presents the objects and communicate your intended message to your adopted user. What type of information do you want the user to extract from the organization? How much text would you need together with the visuals in order to make the message clear? What would the title be? How will you use color? What format would you choose? So the format can span from a poster, if you want, to an Instagram story, but make sure that the choice is informed by the preferences of your adopted users and by how best you could reach the adopted user. So think carefully about layout, composition, and sequence of every single element. Make sure that every decision you make has a reason and serves a purpose. Feel free to touch base with your adopted user for quick tests during this process. So in London at Central St. Martin's, we started to assign this project in 2009. And that's when we pushed, they started pushing this, actually, this type of brief in many, many courses. It is about telling a data story where the data are things that we are surrounded by in our everyday life. We have had students collecting all sorts of data, music they listen to, choices in life, physical things such as socks, ceramic pots, some dismantled electronics. They chose a collection of watches, what they have in their closet, or the plants in the apartment. One student, for the first time in 4 years, decided to use as data set all the objects on his desk. So he started exploring, and based on the adopted user, he started identifying what type of arrangement would tell a message, would communicate an interesting message about his own life to his adopted user. Sketchbooks have been a crucial tool to record the process. So we ask you to take pictures of your sketchbooks as well. We ask you to use your sketchbooks to track the development. We don't want this process just to happen in your head. We want to see the documentation. So if you progress with your sketch or notes, just take a picture, sometimes like upload them into your folder. We want to see the progress. All is tied together by having one real user as a receiver of the visualization. Einar, who made a project about musical instrument, drums. So he actually dismantled the whole piece and he started playing, as you can see, very physically with the object. And he started documenting the process extremely well. He ended up with a visualization that was extremely interesting and with a poster. But what I want to highlight here is that design part 1 is as important as design part 2. Don't skip trying to find a solution straight away without really thinking about the exploration. That is the most important thing. If you don't explore it, if you don't think, if you don't write, if you don't expand the creative process through notes and sketches, we cannot see why you have arrived at your final solution. So remember that the goal is for us to collaborate in this group, to record. We do not expect masterpieces, but we want to see how you think, how you share, how you design. So I want to leave you with this quote: "No story lives unless someone wants to listen." In 2013, I was queuing with my family near the entrance to the Warner Bros. Harry Potter studios in London. And this quote was standing in large letters on one of the walls. So it's not enough to produce kick-ass data visualizations if they do not meet our audience where they are, whoever the audience is supposed to be. Broad audience for a media outlet, patients for a doctor, policymakers for the IPCC, and so on. Whatever the format, whether static or interactive, printed or digital, we have to make sure that we are meeting our audience where they are. And that's when we design for impact. So we really hope that this was a good beginning. We will talk to you on Tuesday, tomorrow. And feel free to watch these recordings, and remember that there are some terms of use. The recordings of the lectures and any slide are meant only for you, for the course participants. Neither reuse, modifications, nor commercial uses of the material are permitted, and please do not upload slides and recordings on social media platform. So thank you very much.